It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. So you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the hashtag Event Icons. We'll be answering your questions live through the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share hashtag Event Icons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is hashtag Event Icons with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Events, Laura Lopez of Social Tables, and Brant Kruger of Event Technology Consulting.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody. It is Will Curran in the house. Laura and Brant are both out on events all across the world, so you're stuck with me this week. How dare you?
Bum, bum, bum.
But I'm super excited because this is a topic I love talking about, and a topic I think that is really needed to be brought up in the events industry, to be dove in deeper into, and it's the idea of how to structure your event internship. You know, we've had one of our guests on the show before, and we've talked a little bit briefly about this, but we wanted to dive really deep into it on how you as a company, and also even if you're tuning in as an intern, how you can design your internship to make it the best possible. So I'm going to stop talking because I really want to dive into this topic. We probably can talk about this for like 17 million hours. So I'm going to jump right on in and introduce our guests. First up is a repeat offender of the Event Icons group, Aubri Nowowiejski. Aubrey's in the house. If you don't remember her from last episode, it was for the SEPA episode. I think it was a long episodes ago, so we're excited to have you back. Thank you again, Aubri, for being here to talk a little bit about event internships.
Absolutely. Excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And next up, Mary Baird-Wilcock in the house, and she is going to be talking a lot about, you know, how can you design these awesome internships. We actually came up with this topic together, and I'm just excited to have her here today because literally, she's going to be dropping some knowledge bombs and telling you how it is and giving you the real talk. So thank you so much for being here today, Mary.
My pleasure. Let's dive in.
Awesome. So just give everyone kind of a background so everyone can kind of know where you're coming from. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into the events industry and you know, what kind of got you to the point you are today? So why don't we kick it off with Aubri?
All right. Where do I begin? I want to credit my parents, honestly. They've both loved to entertain, my dad especially. My mom is very detail-oriented. So my dad's an extrovert, my mom's an introvert, and the two combined kind of made me. And so whenever we hosted family gatherings or business parties at the house, they would always get everything ready, and then right as guests arrived, that's when they would start to get dressed. So I would play hostess for all of these events, and that then just spilled over into my life in school. So I've always been involved, high school, middle school, college, and beyond, and that really, all the different events that I participated in, from pep rallies to school dances, etc., kind of helped pave the way for my love for events.
Awesome. And just so in case they didn't watch the episode last time about SEPA, can you kind of talk a little bit about what it is and kind of, I guess, how it fits into the role of event internships and kind of what your experience is with that?
Absolutely. So in 2009 at Texas State University, where I was attending school, I founded the Student Event Planners Association, or SEPA, or SEPA for short, however you want to call it. As long as you know our name, I'm happy.
Everyone hates that I call it that, so I apologize.
That's all good. And so we cater to students and helping to develop them into professionals, and we do that through a variety of different programs that we offer, as well as partnerships. We're based on college and university campuses nationwide now, and so a big component of what we do is providing opportunities, whether it's volunteer, internship, or job opportunities for our members. So I'm a big advocate for educating not just our students, but also professionals in the events industry as to what an actual internship is.
Awesome, and I'm sure we're going to dive really deep into that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Mary, you're up next. Tell us a little bit about like what got you to where you are today, and you know you are definitely one of the top 25 young event professionals to be watching. So tell us what got you to that point.
Well, a little known fact about me is that the way I got into the events industry is actually through commercial radio. I used to work at various radio stations all across Texas, and got in every single position you can think of. So marketing and sales and on air as a DJ, voiceover work, production, like back end, live engineering, all that stuff. But really, one of my first gigs in radio was working in the promotions department. And promotions is all about producing large scale festivals, events, nightclub events, foam parties, like, oh my God, that was my 20s. All of that stuff, sparked, obviously, my job was different every single week. We had different events every single week. And I just loved it. I loved the idea of being in such a vibrant community and creating memorable live event experiences on a large scale like that. So yeah, that's where I got I guess I got bitten by the bug for events. And then I started the Simplifiers in 2003, and somehow I am in the UK. I don't know, how did that happen? Somehow, I don't know. Texas girl in the middle of the UK, but we'll talk about that later.
Awesome. I love it. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask. Shout out to Alex, who helped come up and design this question. If you weren't in the events industry, what would you be doing instead? So Mary, why don't you kick it off?
Scuba dive instructor, that's my first choice, in Belize. Or two...
Well, you have a location you would do it in.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, yeah. I know, Peacocker, I would be right there. Or two, I would own a breakfast taco food truck, probably in Belize as well. But no, those are my two dream jobs.
Oh my gosh. So definitely not Belize, in Phoenix, so I can have breakfast tacos all the time. Oh,
yes, exactly. I mean, it's a sickness.
I love it. And we'll have to get you some breakfast nachos too.
They know nothing about breakfast tacos in England, you guys. You have no idea.
Maybe that's your target market right there.
Yeah, this whole Simplifiers thing doesn't pan out. Food truck next.
I love it. All right, what about you, Aubri? What would you be doing instead?
I don't have anything quite as creative. I love helping people, and I love kind of helping them break down their goals and guiding them towards living a fulfilled life. And so I think it would probably be something in counseling or HR that I would dive into.
Ooh, very cool. So it's perfect that we're going to be talking about HR-related issues today.
And tacos.
And tacos. I love it. Yeah, definitely. Next episode, I'm going to be expecting some tacos, Mary. All right, so the first question I want to kind of kick us off, and again, everyone tuned in, your chance is to ask questions of these amazing event professionals. To give you guys a little bit of background audience, so obviously I run and manage an event production company that just hit 10 years old this year. So it's been doing it for quite a while, and when we first started the company, we couldn't afford to pay everyone, so we heavily relied on internships. So I can definitely talk a lot to the internship side. So we want to see your questions about this, because we know you have very specific questions about how to structure your internships, all that sort of stuff, and we want to answer them. But I want to kick off, wow, can't talk today, the conversation with one question, which is, what defines an internship versus like a normal employee? And is it the same? Is it different? I'll let you kick it off, Aubri, with what are your kind of thoughts on the definition difference between the two?
I think a really easy way to determine which side of the spectrum you're on is who does it serve most, right? So if it is serving the student, you're giving them educational value, etc., then it is an internship. If it's the other way around, you're bringing somebody on really to help serve your bottom line, help build your business, and it's more on the business's side of getting the greatest benefit, then it is an employee at that standpoint, and you need to pay them for the work that they're doing. That's how I would simply explain it.
I feel like you've answered this question before. That was like the most succinct response. I love it.
And you know what? The laws that are out there to protect both the intern and the employer, I think in both ways. If you aren't up to speed with the laws in the U.S., Canada, UK, wherever you are, certainly let's break that down and talk about it today, because I think there's a lot of things that people don't realize that you can and cannot do with an intern.
Absolutely. I think I will definitely probably dive into more like the law-specific stuff in a little bit, because I think that's probably the thing everyone has most questions about. Obviously, granted, we're not lawyers and we're all not, pure HR professionals over here, but consult your local HR people. But we'll definitely try to dive in with what we know about. I'm curious to know, because I think one reason why this conversation was wanting to be brought up is the change that's kind of happened over time. Over the last, even I would say in the last 10 years since I started my company, things have changed so much with technology, with, students for credit, all that sort of stuff, pay versus not pay. How have you seen internships change over, let's just choose the last 10 years. Let's pick any time based on the last 10 years. How have you seen it evolve, and how have you seen it to the point where it is today versus what it was 10 years ago?
Well, I would say that even in the last 10 years, our industry has evolved and elevated, and I think that it's come with it. So I think 10 years ago, we were still fighting the stigma that we are all balloon artists and, party planners. No shame to the balloon artists in the world, but I'm just saying, like, the idea of moving from party planner to experiential marketing agency or live events as an extension of your brand's marketing arm, I think is really important. And so I think it just legitimizes what we are as an industry and the brands that we work with and all that. So in that, I think that internships had to step up the game as well. That you can't just literally hire people to shuffle some paper around and pretend to be a receptionist. Like you need to really structure your internship program so that you're providing good quality training curriculum. And I would also dare say that talking about the laws, I think in the last 5 years there's been a lot of class action suits. People that are like, you know what? No, and suing events companies as well as non-event companies and winning those cases. So you kind of have to step up your game a bit.
Yeah, super duper great point, definitely, about how the laws have changed, gotten stricter for sure. I think, in the last probably 3 or 4 years, they found that, hey, the people to go after are definitely small businesses, because they're the ones that are breaking the rules. They're the ones who are skirting the laws. They're the ones who are, doing the whole 1099 versus W-2 thing. I mean, that's a whole separate conversation that Will loves to talk about, but, they realized that they could go after it. And I think you also brought up a really good point that as our industry has matured, the needs and the requirements have matured, and almost to the point where it's almost tying back again to the laws portion. You said that, hey, the industry's gotten more serious, so now governmental agencies and people who are applying for them are more serious about everything. It's not just, hey, I'm going to go work for the party planner and this is fun and that's the only thing I get out of this, right?
I could eat cake at the end of the night. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So much fun.
Oh my gosh. Aubri, what are your kind of thoughts on how it's evolved over the last 10 or so years?
I completely agree with Mary. Everything that she's saying. One of the things I always talk about is that baby boomers and Gen X's, as she mentioned, have really fought to legitimize this industry and this career path. And I think what millennials and the next generation are going to bring about is that just by sheer number and statistic, we're the most highly educated generation in history, but we're also the most unskilled. And that's simply because people are always offended when I say that stat. It's just because we've had more people go through university because we're just the largest generation in history. All right, so explaining that point. But to that point, because we are so used to school and structured curriculums, I feel like that's the next wave for the events industry, is really working to help standardize education across universities and different curriculums, rather than a bunch of these pop-up become a wedding planner overnight certifications that you can find on Groupon. And further to that, also the ethics and integrity, which also ties into the internships. And part of it, it's both sides. There's education lacking on both the businesses who are creating these internships and the students themselves. One of the big red flags is that a lot of students are looking for employers who will say, you have the potential to be hired here, or we will hire you at the completion of this program. And that's actually something that you're not supposed to dangle in front of people, as far as you could or could not be hired. And that's what the students are looking for. So it's kind of, again, education on both sides.
Interesting. I think that's a really super duper solid point about, like not dangling the carrot. That was one of my questions. I think a little bit later we'll talk about. My follow-up question, I guess, since we jumped into the thing that everyone loves to talk about, which is like the generation talk, right? How do internships differ? How, I guess, even maybe we take a step back about, we asked the question of how to structure your internship, but how should the internship be structured for this generation? Most employers might be looking for X, but really they should be delivering Y. So for example, a big trend that we saw at Endless was that the idea of remote work, this idea that people don't necessarily want an office to report to, they want the ability to have freedom to travel while also working and things like that. So we designed our employment so that you can work anywhere you want to work, and that's obviously a trend that didn't exist 5 years ago. Everyone was like, I have to come in an office, I have to work here. What other sort of trends and things are you seeing for structuring of internships that has changed in the last 5 years?
Well, yeah, I think you hit on upon it. I think some of the things that I might say are sort of what I call Captain Obvious, but I think they're also Captain Obvious because we forget that to do them. They're such simple steps. But the very, very first step is to set out a very clear outline of what you're looking for from an intern candidate, what kind of responsibilities they might have, what kind of tasks they might be part of, and also what kind of training you're going to provide. Be very clear with expectations right up front, and putting that out into an agreement I think is really, really, really important, and a step that sometimes we all forget to do.
So are employers usually then they're like just saying, hey, you're hired as an intern, and they have no idea what they're going to be doing typically?
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens more times than not. And, I think that there's you have it's not a job, but an internship description, right? The one-sheeter, responsibilities, qualifications, what we're looking for, please apply here, right? That's step one. And then obviously you hire the person, but then step two is setting out the agreement of sorts of what is it that you're looking to get from this as the intern, and what are your goals in the next 8 weeks, the next 3 months, whatever it might be. But then what is the expectations, I guess, on both sides, and that's the step that I think people fail to do. It's interesting. There's a real good book out right now, very quick read. It's from the whole 1 Minute Manager people, but it's called 1 Minute Mentoring. And one of their very key things that they talk about is to set out first a mission statement for your relationship, between the mentor and the mentee. What is the mission statement? What are you hoping to accomplish? So you set out that mission right from the get-go. And I love how very simple that is, but it's very poignant.
Absolutely. And piggybacking off of that, millennials are very purpose-driven. So being able to explain how they fit into the grand scheme of things and having something like that mission statement is so important. So important. And I think going back to something I talked about earlier, when even thinking about starting an internship program for your company, you first really have to gut check and ask what your true intention is. I feel like going back to what Mary talked about, of a lot of these companies have zero structure, zero plan in place. They put some post on Craigslist out there and they're just almost desperate to find someone, and often it's because they're so short-staffed that they need someone now, yesterday, really. They need someone yesterday. And what they aren't realizing is that these people are coming in with zero training, and you have to train them. And so oftentimes you end up slowing down the progression of your business rather than speeding it up. So your expectations have to be clear. Are you really going out there in an intent to find somebody, mentor them, and maybe they can help benefit the industry or your company in the future at an employment standpoint? Or is it really kind of a selfish motive of, I need more bodies to do my work?
Yeah, and if you're literally looking for manual labor, like people to move tables and chairs, like seriously, don't even bother with interns, because the hassle and the paperwork and the training and all the things that you need to do legally to run an internship program is way easier to find a $10 an hour person that's muscle to set up some tables and do that, and pay that person as manual labor there, rather than trying to jump through the hoops of trying to make that fit into an internship program scheme. Now, I'm not saying that my interns have not shadowed at events. 100%. We all put our graft in and do our hard work, but that can't be the primary focus by which I just need warm bodies. I need people to move stuff on my event this Saturday. It's the wrong way to go with it.
I think Aubri, taking it back to that point of the definition of the internship versus the employment, is that that's benefiting the business, not benefiting the intern. And to be honest, you kind of have to put yourself in their shoes to say, if you were just graduating college or you were applying for this internship, what would you be wanting to get? Put yourself back in their shoes when you were their age and think, okay, would I want to be moving tables? Will I learn a lot from that? What will I get out of that? And I think that helps a lot too. I always try to, when designing internships or employment, is to think, what's this experience going to be like for them? I think you guys brought up a good point that maybe not a lot of people know about. I was lucky that I was running my company in college, so I kind of like knew how to design an internship because I was like that person, right? But a lot of people don't know how internships should be structured. You know, a lot of times, for example, they're tied into you know, they're being a student, or maybe they have to do it for credit during the semester. So to get into the nitty-gritty, what are your recommendations for structuring it? Like what the length of it should be like? You know, how much training should be going in versus them having independent work? You know, what are your kind of thoughts on the structure of it itself, including how much should be training and that sort of stuff? So, Aubri, you want to kick that off?
Yeah, I can jump in real quick. And so, and by the way, one of my first introductions to one of the most kick-ass internship programs was actually Mary's program. When she lived in Austin, I was a student at Texas State University, and it was one of the most highly sought after, and this is not lip service, one of the most highly sought after competitive internship programs, because she literally had everything that she's going to talk about in a second. And so what I would recommend when starting to map out or scope your internship program is first and foremost, research the colleges and universities that are in your vicinity and see whether or not what college you would fit into. So do they have a hospitality program or a certificate program? Do they have communications or marketing would probably be the next departments that I would go into. And some of them have or should have a department that manages their internship program. So this is A&M's professional internship requirements printed out right here. And what's cool about it is, as a class, they have their own assignments that they have to submit by certain deadlines. All right, I've got to evaluate, I've got to do these different things. So when structuring the internship program for the company that I'm currently working for, Coterie Spark, I first pulled together the different internship programs for the 3 schools that are closest in proximity, figured out what were the hour requirements that they needed, and it was between 200 to 400 hours for these particular internship programs. A standard internship is going to run between 8 to 12 weeks, and it's either going to be in the fall, spring, or over the summer break. So that's the different time frames, and keeping that in mind, you need to know when you need to start promoting your internship opportunity based on
when do you recommend to start promoting? Well, like let's say for example fall, like someone's looking to hire an intern for the fall, you know, when should they start promoting?
I mean, I would have that information available on your website or wherever they can access to begin with, especially if you're going to have a consistent program fall, summer, and spring with the application deadlines. And knowing when you would need to have that position confirmed, I would say at least a month out, you need to kind of have an idea of who's going to be filling that position, or at least 3 weeks out. So if you back up from there, you want to promote at least a month and a half out from there. Mary, would you say that's about the time?
Yeah. So it's interesting you should say that. I think things are slightly different in the UK versus the US as well. But what I've found as work over the years is that if for a fall intern to begin, let's say end of August in the States, in the US, I would start recruiting in April and May, like right before the spring semester ended.
Actually,
yeah, but then for the spring semester, I would start recruiting in October, November for a January start. Now, here in the UK, the schools like start and end in weird ways. So, like, their fall semester doesn't actually even begin until the end of September, which is really weird. So your fall interns actually start in October and run for 8 weeks after that. And students don't go to summer school here, like at all. I mean, very teeny tiny % of people actually go to summer school. So and we had to learn that lesson really hard. We're like, what is it? Why can't we find interns? Like, this is crazy. But yeah, so for us, we only have interns now in the fall and in the spring.
And obviously, you get the pick of the litter when you promote further in advance versus waiting to the last minute, and you're just getting the people who were dragging their heels and not finding an internship, right? They'll take whatever they can get. And
on that point too, I'm sorry. I was gonna say that definitely, yeah. I've seen that you promote earlier. Like if you have everything put together a year in advance, even you can sometimes get those people who are like really thinking about their internship like a whole year in advance, and that's great because then you can go to them a year in advance and be like, oh yeah, we have them apply everything like that, and you have that internship lined up really early. And usually the people who are most organized and planning that far in advance are usually the people you want on your team too.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
Well, and I think developing that relationship with whoever the career services advisor is, or here in the UK, we have great relationships with the local universities and their professors as well. And then so you can develop that relationship because those teachers and people are not changing every year and semester, right? And they can be your advocates and champions to help you recruit the very best, bright, shiny stars in their classes as well.
Absolutely on that point, yes. Going back to how to structure the internship, so again, if it's 8 to 12 weeks, depending on your calendar and depending on the course credits that they need to have, every intern is going to be a little bit different. You need to be flexible with them because obviously their top priority is to get their school work done. But what we did with Coterie Spark is I essentially took the different steps that it would take to do an event from start to finish, and I broke those down into steps. So each week we have essentially a learning objective from first week being orientation and kind of setting those goals and expectations that Mary was talking about. Second week, talking what our professional services outline is. So what do our contracts look like when we're bidding business? Then once we get that business, starting to outline the budget and then moving into RFPs and how to source different venues. And what I think is cool is that you can add on other external learning points. So as an example, when we talk about RFPs, I'm going to have that intern get CVIT certified. So they'll go through the CVIT certification training, and that's something they can do on their own, but during business hours. So they're getting extra credentials that they can add to their LinkedIn or their resume while they're on the job.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. So wow, that was a lot. I think that's going to be super duper helpful for anybody who's tuned in right now. Mary, I know that Aubri kind of teased us a little bit, and I think everyone wants to hear now a little bit, how is your internship program structured, and how do you, like you kind of hinted at, like how you do recruitment and everything like that. Can you kind of hit on, tell us everything that you are doing?
Tell it all now.
Tell it all.
Okay. So let me just start with a bit about how I structure the training program. That's probably a good chunk there. So we personally like to have our interns at least 12 weeks, if at all possible, because I feel like there is nothing you can learn. So this is also interesting about in the UK versus the US. Internships are very different here. The very first semester that we moved the business over here, one of the universities just wanted to give us 30-hour placements. Like they only do 30 hours, and they wanted to cram it all in 1 week. And I'm like, what could I possibly teach somebody in 1 week? Where they're shadowing me the entire time, full time in 1 week. It's like, what's the point? Like, they will be shuffling paper because it's not of any value or benefit to them. So what we have found in the UK is that most internships tend to be about 8 weeks long, and I would say that's at the very, very minimum, but I prefer 12 weeks. And I also say that the commitment, time-wise, should be about 8 hours or so every week at minimum for those 8 to 12 weeks. And the way we break that down is like this. Every Monday, we have an all-hands team meeting, and it's an hour and a half long. So out of your 8 hours, you have that hour and a half chunk on Monday, same time, same place, and that kicks off the week. And we do full training with everybody on board. And we break it down that every week we train on a different topic, whether that's event design, budgets, timelines, risk management, production schedules, sales and marketing, all of that. So we take one topic, we focus on it the entire week, and have a whole curriculum based on that. And then the other 6.5 hours that they are allocated that week, they do in-office time. So, and we prefer, in the most ideal instances, we have 5 interns at any given semester, and so 1 person per day, Monday through Friday. So they're all together on Monday, but then each person gets 1 day in the office that's theirs, and they shadow alongside our team and work on assignments that are related to the topic we train them on. But then they also might take on some responsibilities with client events that relate to that topic as well. well. So they're getting actual, tangible, hands-on experience doing stuff. And then if there is an event on that weekend, then we might edit back their in-office hours so that they don't go over. They're not working 20 hours that week or something like that, so that they at least get 4 hours on site at that event. Because while we say, yeah, I mean, shuffling tables and chairs, what are you going to learn? You do learn a lot when you have to flip a room in 60 minutes, you know. So you do learn a bit there, and we call it event shadowing. So they're not there just as manual labor, but we literally want them to shadow the lead planner and be right next to us. So if a panic happens, you know, the bride breaks a hole in her dress, what do? I want them to see how I handle it. I want them to see, you know, do I freak out? Does my body language change? Do my head freak out? Like, you know, sometimes I get these like little weird things, and it's like, no, calm, cool, collected, right? Because that's where they learn. That's where they really truly understand what it takes to be a great event person. Yeah, so that's basically, in essence, how we structure the process. And then over time, people kept hearing about our crazy event, how we structure our internship programs, and asking me to speak at conferences, and then, you know, just really saying, like, Mary, how do we do this at our company? And so a couple of years ago, we actually developed an e-learning course so that other companies could use this to train their interns, and we called it the Apprentice Program.
Awesome. Wow. Again, so much knowledge, I think, in the last like 10 minutes for everyone. Wow. So very, very cool. I think it's very interesting how you have designed it to be very part-time, too, because a lot of times when we've designed our internships, we actually don't usually take part-time interns just because we want it. We usually do like the people who are, hey, I need an internship to complete, you know, as 40 hours a week and for a whole semester and everything like that. But you know, it's very interesting to see how you've designed, especially the one intern per day, which is really, really cool.
Well, and it gives us a focus and dedicated attention to them. So they sit right alongside us here at the office, and they can ask questions. They see how we're working. Like they're part of the team, the integral team. And I think, I mean, for us, we're not a massive company, so we have 3 in our team, and then at any given time, we might have 3 to 5 interns as well. So it really helps to kind of, you know, they're part of everything that we do.
That's awesome. I think one important thing too is that how you've designed it, where they have longer sprints of learning too. So if instead of doing like, you know, you said, hey, 8 hours a week, instead of doing 2 hours every day or like an hour and a half every day, it's 6 hours to get really in depth with it. And because a lot of times you think that, again, that's one reason why we haven't done part-time internships, is the time it takes for you to ramp up and then the time it takes for you to ramp down, you end up having like really only a couple hours of real focused time. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it also benefits the students. So they're not having to commute back and forth to our office, you know, for a couple hours a day. That makes no sense at all. You know, it's really respectful, I hope, of their school schedules as well. So, you know, depending on when their classes are, we will figure a day that isn't, you know, when they're in classes and stuff, and so they can really dedicate a full day to it. But I will say one last thing. You know, one of the things that's really on the horizon for us is what you were talking about earlier, is that really truly thinking about the idea of actually recruiting remote interns, people who we would just 100% meet virtually like this. Because, I mean, you know, video technology has come a long way in, you know, when we can do virtual meetings very similar to what we're doing right now. So we're actually exploring that idea of what if we did have interns in Paris, in Texas, in Dubai, wherever. You know, is there anything that's really stopping the Simplifiers from having interns all over the world? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, that's just a thought. So.
No, I love it. Definitely, the remote thing brings, you know, new possibilities. A, because you have a broader audience to potentially pull great interns from, but you know, it's also really great because, hey, a lot of times they want to work. They're used to working in their dorms and doing their homework and, you know, working remotely or doing classes online. So usually they're really good at, you know, being able to be remote. And, you know, to be honest, when you tell someone, hey, by the way, for your summer break, you know, you can actually go home and enjoy time with your family, not have to stay in, you know, that sort of stuff, which I think is sometimes always tough with internships because they're like, oh, now I have to find an apartment to stay in over summer or, you know, whatnot. So.
The only thing that's stopping us right now from doing it is, I think, really, truly a key integral part of a great event planning internship is to be at events, to
Yeah.
be in person at the event. And
Absolutely.
I think if you miss that, I mean, like literally, if we started booking more hybrid events and, you know, online conferences and things like that, it's like, let's just do it. Let's make this happen,
Totally.
you know, but yeah.
That's where I think our model is a little different. Is that like we fly our staff in, so the interns also get flown in for the events as well. So that's obviously a little different. So not perfect for every company, but obviously it worked for us. So I think we're lucky. Aubri, did you have anything you want to add, like as far as structuring of internships? Sorry.
Yeah, I want to play devil's advocate on, obviously I'm the kind of millennial in the room and speaking about kind of the
Hey,
virtual...
don't make me feel old. I'm like only 2 years older than you.
There you go. With the virtual internships, because we do get these questions all the time with SEPA. We will have people call us and say, hey, I have an intern and they need to know how to work QuickBooks. They need to do all of these different capabilities. And by the way, I want them, they can work wherever they want to work, you know, and it flirts again that line of it being more of an employee versus an intern, because when I think about internships, I kind of relate that to mentorship. And of course I have virtual mentors, but there's something different about these students having their first experience working in an actual office place. And part of that is just responsibility of showing up on time, looking presentable, knowing what the dynamics of an office is, because they'll likely work in one, and all of the things that we kind of take for granted that we have now learned, but if we had to think back to when we first started, we didn't know how to put together a binder with our different receipts for, you know, expenses and all of these things that you can only really observe in some places in the office place. And I think Mary made a great point about being on site and kind of leading by example. If they're not there to observe you, then how are they going to pick up those qualities? And what are you actually teaching them? Unless you're like straight up in a Google Hangout with them for a good portion of that time that they're working, you know, and having a dialogue and kind of working through things together. If it's just, hey, I'm going to email you your assignments, work through these, they already know how to do that clearly. So what are you teaching them?
Yeah, very good.
It's 100% it. No, it's true. It's true, because I think you get a lot. If the relationship between mentor and mentee is the integral part of having a great internship program. So yeah, and that's exactly it. You hit the nail on the head. Like if you don't have that, then I don't know. Can you replicate that online? I don't know.
Hey, I think we can, but that's just we're very rare. I mean, like, I think, Aubri, the disclaimer that you put on there, I think is fantastic, because a lot of times people see what we've done, they're like, oh yeah, I can totally do like remote internship, but then they don't see everything that we're doing in the background too, how we've developed our company culture is centered around being remote. So we've extended our mentorship,
and that's a whole different. But most event planning companies that's not the culture, right? So
exactly. Their culture, like if you do remote, it ends up they feel excluded, because they're like, oh hey, I'm the only one who's remote and everyone else is in the office. Oh great, this is horrible. I don't like this.
Exactly. And speaking to that point and Mary's point about how she's talked about starting each week and they're all sitting at the table, that's both a figurative and literal type analogy for millennials. We want to have a seat at that table. We want to feel valued and a part of something. We want to know what that mission vision is. We want to know what that culture is, and you can't. It's like comparing face to face to virtual. Like we will all hands down agree that there's just something about being in person
and being part of a team. Yep.
I think one thing that I've kind of pulled away from this conversation of that we've had about how to structure it is the key word, I think, is structure. And far too often in internships, there's no structure around it. Like you guys were saying, knowing exactly what you're going to do. You know, I think I got a good breakthrough. I had tons of internship programs. We went through like lots of different models and what's going to work. And, you know, we tried the whole like, hey, come in and like just shadow, and that didn't quite work, you know. And then we eventually realized that like, a lot of times students are coming out of school where they're used to being like, here's your assignment, it's due this date, you have to have it by this time, here's the people you're going to work with, and the more structure you give them, the more they're going to thrive and learn from that. Whereas, you know, if you just say, oh yeah, here you go, here, do this, again, is that truly an internship? But also, you know, is it really, are you teaching them anything? Are they going to learn anything from it? So when we had the most success when we structured it like a teaching program, where I was like, yeah, you have an intro, you have you know, a rubric, here's exactly what you're going to do, here's like the exact path you're going to go on, here's the end goal, all that sort of stuff. So I think you guys bring really, really good tactical advice on how to do that. One of my favorite things to ask about when it comes to internships is, what are the biggest mistakes that you see people making? What are the big things that you think people need to avoid? We've kind of talked about them. Like sometimes treating them like an employee, just giving them tasks to do when they're not really learning anything. But what other big mistakes do you see employers make when they're creating their internships?
I think it goes back to what I said earlier, is the timing of it. I think a lot of people do it as a reaction instead of being reactive, or reactive, whatever, I'm talking about. The other way around of being so underneath water with what they have going on, and deciding then in a split decision of like, oh, I need to bring interns. Obviously, that's what I need, to solve all the world's problems. And that's typically like red flag, do not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything that we've talked about so far, for sure. And I think that not having the intern define their own goals at the very beginning, I think that's a critical step, that if you don't have that conversation right from week one, we say, week one, we're going to introduce you into our company culture. You're going to learn about our mission and our vision and our core values. You're going to learn about our company's annual goals and our quarterly goals and all of that stuff. You're going to get, fire hose of information shouting out at you. And I want you to take that information and process it and think about it this first week, and then come back and say on Monday, I want to be part of these 3 projects. These 3 goals are really, really important to me, because I want to learn Photoshop. I want to learn, budgeting. I want to learn Snapchat for business, and I see that you guys have these goals that, are aligned to that. So can I be part of this thing? And that gives your intern a feeling of being empowered and being part of the conversation as well. And when you approach it that way, it's not me, the mentor, telling you this is what you're doing, the end, I don't want any more input. It's a two-way street. You're having a conversation about it. So yeah.
I love that.
I love like the co-creation of it, for sure.
100%. And I love it when interns that come back and say, you know what, I see that your goals are this, but actually I want to learn this. Can we do this? Like, I want to learn press releases. I want to learn blah, 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 blah. And I go, yeah, why not? Let's figure out a way to make that happen. Because by the time I've hired you as an intern, I am 100% invested in you. You are part of the flock. Come together, So you tell me what you want to learn most, and we'll make it happen. So I love that part of the process of mentoring.
To that point, because it is mentoring, exactly what you said, one of the things I always try to remind employers is they don't know what they don't know. They're students, they're kids, if you will, but don't treat them like that. But they don't know what they don't know. So one of the things I valued the most in the internship that I had way back when was we were working on something, and she just stopped all of a sudden. She's like, you know what, Aubri? We're going to close what we're doing, and we're going to have a little mentor moment. I'm going to teach you about something, and it was just like her taking the time, pumping brakes. It was that focus and concentration on teaching me something I would have never thought to have asked, just meant so much to me. So it's those little things that, whether you're paying the intern or not paying the intern, those little things make a huge difference in incentivizing and gaining loyalty as well from your interns.
I love it. I think a big mistake that I totally see too is the not putting like an intern through a full hiring process, like as much as you would a normal process. I think far too often you go, oh, yeah, this person wants to work for me. Oh, great, they're an intern. They look excited. Okay, cool, and they don't really match the culture. They haven't quite have evaluated to make sure they're a good fit for within like the position that you're kind of like looking to have them learn, and that you just kind of rush them again kind of into it. And I've seen it far too often where people, especially in the technical side of things, where people want to apply for internships. They're like, yeah, I want to get in the events industry. Great. And we're like, cool. Well, we're an AV company. Let's put it that way, And then they're like, oh, well, I want to plan weddings. And you're like, yeah. not good fit. Unless you want to know like we really have to find people who love technical production. So that's the one thing I always see is, like you said, sometimes rushing into it. So we have a good question from the audience. I can possibly answer this question, and maybe you guys can as well. How do Anthony Vade from Canada is reaching out and asking, how do high physical segments of event business, for example, decor or technical production companies, best address the risk of on-site injury to interns and associated internship insurance requirements? So, you know, potential businesses that could have someone fall off a ladder or, you know, could drop something on their foot and hurt themselves. Like, how do you address that with the risk of on-site injury, and what have you guys done in the past?
I'll take that one. So I am not an insurance agent, but you should definitely.
We don't play one on TV.
No, you should definitely talk to your whoever your insurance provider is. So you have professional, theoretically, you have professional liability insurance, employers and liability insurance, and the verbiage might be very different in different countries and stuff, but there should be a clause in there about additional staff, and you should also see if there's a clause specifically for interns, and you can add those clauses into it. You know, and it also really depends on, do you have workers' compensation as part of your insurance or not? So this is a conversation to have with your professional insurance adjuster, because I think that is important. And I mean, I might be stating the blatant obvious, but don't put your intern on the ladder. Like, you don't put, you know, untrained staff up rigging lights if they, you know, that wouldn't be the first person I would put at the top of the ladder. So, and I wouldn't necessarily put them at the bottom of the ladder either. Let's just, you know, I think that, again, you know, it comes back to what Aubri said in the beginning. Is it an employee or is it an intern? You know, you put those kind of higher risk jobs towards your trained staff who are on your insurance, who are on, you know, part of that process.
I agree 100%. I was going to say, you know, one of these cases is kind of like where it blurs the line between internship and employee. If you're going to have them do that sort of stuff, they need to be like legit employees. They need to be on your workman's comp. They need to be on your, you know, your liability insurance. I mean, talk to obviously your insurance person to make sure that that's covered. But I mean, I think this might have been a question I think we asked in that one episode we did with you, Aubri, as well. And I think I'll just kind of, instead of us doing the conversation, is the idea of paid versus unpaid, and it should be always they should be paid interns. So if you're paying them, hopefully you're paying them like in the United States like a W-2 employee, and in that case they usually have their own insurance, everything like that's covered. If you're not, you need to make sure they're covered and make sure that they're feeling safe, because the last thing you want is someone to get hurt, obviously.
100%.
All right, so we got a bunch more questions to get through and not as much time. This is such a great topic. We so much to cover for. So I think in like kind of a quick answer, what are some warning signs students should be looking for when applying for internships? Like, what are quick ways that you would say, you know, looking at job position or maybe talking to someone that would put red flags in your eyes to be like, pump the brakes, maybe I shouldn't be doing this internship?
I think two things is, do they have a legitimate post or publishing of exactly what Mary talked about earlier? Like, what is the position? What are the responsibilities? What are the expectations? Or is it just, hey, I'm seeking an intern, email me at, right? And beyond that, one of the first questions I would ask is, have they ever brought on interns before? So you have an idea of whether you're the guinea pig or they have an actual program in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, as an employer, I'm now really, I mean, actually we don't hire interns that aren't part of a university system anymore. We used to back in the States, but here they have to go through a collegiate internship placement that's called a placement module here. So they go through an application process first at the school level, and then the school actually does the first weeding out of applicants. It's really interesting. So they take all the applicants and they go, okay, knowing what I know what you're looking for, here are some candidates that we think are best fit, and then we take them through the interview process. You know, we have an in-person interview, and then we have a second round interview where we have them do like a little written test thing to see their writing skills and their creativity and think fast. Yeah, so I think that that's really important.
Love it. Oh my gosh, so good. I think also for everyone who is an employer, the reason why we ask that question too is put yourself in the mindset also of those are the things you might be doing too that it detracts people from doing your internship as well. All right, so more questions. One coming from the audience from Twitter. This one's kind of funny, I think. How do you feel about interns being given tasks that the company assumes they can do because of their age? For example, social media. It's very common that you see internship positions that say, we want you to do our social media, right? And, you know, yeah, I'll let you guys kind of take that one. Aubri, you want to kind of kick it off?
My face is getting red and flushed, as you can see, because it's like something that kind of makes my blood boil just a little bit. Because I hate how millennials get put in a box of course, we grew up in the technical area and we know how to do social, but again, it goes back to what are you teaching us, right? I've had some event professionals that I've seen speak on, you know, how to develop internship programs, and they're like, basically going from a self-interest standpoint of I need people to run my social media and to write blog posts and do PR, and so I'm just going to bring in that student who knows how to do these things, who can help me build my business. And again, it needs to be the other way around. So yes, give them some of that, because obviously that will make them feel like they're contributing and it's something that they can bring to the table. But at the same time, millennials want a challenge. Your interns want a challenge. So figure out how you're also coupling that with something that's challenging them and educating them as well.
Mm-hmm. And don't assume millennials know social media, you guys. Like, I've actually, a couple of interns that we've had in this last round never have used Pinterest, like don't understand Snapchat. And so don't assume that it's just, you know, that they're all super duper at that. Yeah, I think also that there's an interesting wave of that, the younger interns that we've worked with recently that are just like, you know what, I'm not really into it, like social media as much, you know, like the noise factor in life. They're just said, no, I don't think so. Yeah, so don't assume.
I love it. I love it. And to, I guess, get hyper specific with it too, as an inbound marketer, most of the time too, if you're really looking to get results from social media, just giving it to someone who uses social media probably isn't going to get the results that you're going to need anyways. So yeah. All right. One last question, then we'll jump into the last two questions that we have. What, you know, I know we mentioned at the beginning, like, hey, you can't dangle the carrot of saying, hey, we're going to give you a job at the end of this. You know, obviously that's the ideal, right? I mean, me as an employer, I want to I'm training this person. They're part of our culture. I hope to God they want to stay afterwards and have a full-time job. But you know, obviously you can't promise anything, because that's kind of messed up if you do, especially if you aren't planning on hiring them too. But how can best interns, you know, work? Like, what can they do to ensure that, hey, at the end of that job, that they can, that internship, that they have a job waiting for them? You know, do you have any recommendations on things that they should do other than obviously, you know, the simple stuff, like the obvious stuff, like show up on time, do a good job, you know, all those things like that? What sort of things can they go above and beyond to ensure, hey, you know, I might have a job at the end of this internship?
There is no guarantee of job. I don't know how to say this louder. No guarantee of job, regardless if you are paying your intern or unpaid. Like, it is illegal to say that, and especially in the States, like, I'm looking at the U.S. Department of Labor stuff, like the intern is not necessarily entitled to a job at the conclusion of the internship. So that's not even part of the equation. Like, you don't even talk about it. However, I will say, you know, interns that show up, they show up on time, they do the work, they are committed, they're, you know, speaking up in meetings, they're having ideas, they're gelling with our company culture. You bet I'm hiring people from within, because I've seen you in action. I know, you know, you have what it takes to be part of our team. So, you know, while I will never, ever, ever, ever promise, oh, you know, there's a potential of a job, or if you do a good job, maybe they'll blah, blah, blah. You never say that. But I know secretly inside, I can very quickly assess from meeting somebody. I mean, we've literally mentored, I think the count is now to 125 interns over the years at our company. I can tell within like the first 5 minutes if a person's going to have the lasting power, and I can also tell within the first week if they have what it takes to be an employee in the future. But I never say it out loud. Never, ever, ever. Don't do it.
I think what I would say to students who are interning is that that is going to be your biggest ally, your biggest person who can be a reference and a recommendation, resource, connector for you, because your network is your net worth, and it's all about who you know in this industry. So regardless of whether or not you can get hired at that particular company, if you've done a good job and proven yourself, they will be more than happy, elated to write you letters and recommendations and connect you to people specifically, sit down and game plan with you on what your vision is for your career and help connect you to those particular people, regardless of where it is in the world, because as large as this industry is, it's also very small.
100%, and there have been interns that have worked for the Simplifiers of the years that didn't come on as employees because maybe we didn't have a job opening at the time. I mean, I am still like a mother hen. I see my people out there doing amazing things now. People that were an intern 8-9 years ago doing amazing things, and I'm still to this day recommending and referring people, you know, that worked with me 8 years ago. That I'm saying, hey, have you heard about Jenna and what she's doing? Have you heard about Lindsay? Hey, Lindsay, did you hear about this job? You should totally apply for it. So the relationship you have from a great internship program could be so much more fruitful than what you're thinking in the short term. It can be a long-term relationship that, and I'm more than happy to make connections for people and create opportunities for people.
I love it. Drop the mic. That was amazing. Oh. So we're running a little short on time, but we're going to make it in the way for this to happen. We're going to do like Spitfire fast round. So if you had one tip that you could give to event planners today for making their planning job easier, maybe running their company a little bit easier, what would be your recommendation for that one tip for event planners?
Mine is just know your worth. Point blank period. Know your worth, and don't be afraid to ask for it.
So we've talked a lot about the idea of interns having a mentor, but I am a firm believer that no matter where you are in your career path, if you've been in the business for 3 months or 30 years, everyone needs a mentor, every single person. And I'll build on that. I'm going to add one plus, is that a mentoring relationship, a really good one, is a two-way street. So don't think that it's just, a mentor has to be old and the mentee has to be young. I think that those relationships can be flip-flopped, and you can learn a lot from each other as well. So you're never too old to have a mentor in your life.
Awesome.
Reverse mentorship.
I love it. I love it. All right. I know you guys are amazing at resources, so I want to go through all the amazing resources that you guys have lined up, whether it's new book that you read, a cool app, and I know you guys have a ton of awesome resources for internships as well, like different laws to look up and all that jazz. So let's just go off. I'll let both of you jump in and kind of just list off your favorite resources, and we'll go from there.
You go first, Mary.
I really, really, really love a book called The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte, and we use that as a basis of just thought process and a lot of things that we do in our business and in the Super Mentor Academy, a coaching program that we run for event people. And basically, the Desire Map is very, very simple. It talks about how do you want to feel in life, start there, and then build what you want to do in your life in order to feel that way. So you build goal setting with heart.
Very cool. All right, Aubri, you're next.
I jump in.
Okay. Let's go back and forth.
We're going to go back and forth. Oh, okay, got it. I'm with it now. 2 books that I say must be on your list is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, about inspiring leadership, and I think that's definitely relevant to what we're talking about today and how to train and foster millennials. But also Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, who's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. Oh my gosh, it's the best book for creatives. If you want to come up with new ideas and just challenge your thought process about creative thinking, have to read that book.
Yes, it's such a great book. I get to see her in September. I'm going to a workshop in September. So excited.
Gosh.
So quick thing I saw recently, just literally today, your business Facebook page, you can now have looping video at the very top banner. That's breaking news. I don't know if other people know about that yet, so I'm definitely look for the Simplifiers business Facebook change soon. You can put a video up there at the top, so that's cool. Check that out.
Awesome. Do you guys have any apps that you guys like?
Yes. A new Chrome plugin / app that's in beta testing right now, so it is free, is accompany.com. ACCOM pany.com, a company.com. What's super cool, you sync it with your LinkedIn and your Gmail as an example, or whatever email provider you use. And on the right-hand side, if you have a meeting upcoming, it'll give you a whole debrief of exactly who you're meeting with, what your connections has been with them, what school they go to, what they've posted on the internet recently. And they'll even send you an email prior to that meeting with a debrief in an email format as well. And it's like amazing.
Sounds great. I love Schedule Once. Schedule Once is, I think you can get an app, but it's also cloud-based. But it's simply, you integrate your Google Calendar and you give people a link and you say, here, you schedule a meeting with me so there's no back and forth emails. Oh, does Tuesday at 2 o'clock work? No, here's the link, book it in, and it's amazing. And it sends text messages and reminders to everybody. It's all
I'm so happy that's becoming more acceptable now, because when I first came out, I used Schedule Once for like 4 years, and I always had to be delicate about who I sent it to, and most of the time I wouldn't send it to clients because I felt it was rude to be like, you schedule the time. Now it's so common that people are like, they understand that it's so much more efficient. So like I send it to everybody. Like people are just like, hey, can I okay, here's my calendar.
Yeah, and Calendly is also another one that does it. You can add little widgets into your website. So it's like, do you want to schedule your first 15-minute consult with me? Boom, here's the button. Make it happen. Go. Tick.
Love it.
Do you guys have any resources like on laws or anything like that related to internships?
Yes. So I have a packet right in front of me of how to recruit and hire interns the legal way. It's by Just Work. So if you go on Google and literally just search how to recruit and hire interns the legal way, it's a whole packet. And one of the questions about the whole liability for your interns is answered in here. So you might check it out.
And I'll put in the link in the show notes, the UK, US, and Canadian laws when it comes to working with interns.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Very cool. Very cool. Do you guys have any other resources on stuff like that you're working on that you want to share with everybody, places to check you out online, that sort of stuff? Any favorite blogs?
One more shout out as far as resources. So the Simplifiers Facebook page and also their blog. So Mary won't self-promote, but I will promote for her because it's amazing. There are some incredible videos on her Facebook page, such as questions to ask interns during an interview, what to look for, etc. So check those out. They're free, and the blog content is also very, very great. And then entrepreneur.com also has, just search internship. You'll come up with all kinds of different articles related to internships and how to develop one.
Yeah, we've got a 4-part video series that we published last year on our business Facebook page for the Simplifiers. It's all about how to, step-by-step, how to set up your internship program. So it's all there. Go search for it.
Wow. I thought like I had a lot of resources. That was amazing. I'm sure everyone's furiously taking notes, but good thing is that you don't have to, because we'll post those all on the resources page of the blog after we publish this as well. So go check those out for sure. Just so much. I'm like, all the notes of all the lists of resources dauntingly in front of me. So awesome. Very cool. Well, wow, I think we just barely are hitting the top of the hour. I got to give a huge, huge thank you to Aubri and Mary. Thank you so much for being on the show and dropping so much knowledge. I think that a lot of people just got so much from this. I know I did. So big thank you so much for educating everybody and telling us a little bit more about what we can do to better structure our internships.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. Well, we got to get out of here, guys. These guys are really busy, so we'll catch you guys all next week on another edition of Hashtag Event Icons, and let's have a great day.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of Hashtag Event Icons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxton and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with Hashtag Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on Hashtag Event Icons.